what's the message to Iran?
Don't.
As President Biden said, just don't.
Exactly. One word. Pretty straightforward.
Somebody criticized me the other day because they asked me what I do, and I said, I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. I don't care. They've got to be stopped.
Do you guys all remember how successful the policy of, the intense and incredibly intimidating power of the policy of don't was? Man, I mean, that it didn't accomplish anything, but man, it looked strong when. No, it didn't look strong when either one of them said it. Actually, but hey, at least Kamala was showing the right respect to her boss and the former president, who probably had no idea what he was saying, but he thought it sounded good, so don't became our official policy towards Iran. Personally, I think I'm going to bomb the shit out of them over don't, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyway, how is everyone doing this lovely evening? I'm doing quite well. I might start by saying, because my goodness, it was pretty crazy. A couple of days after the show last time, when we were discussing the immediate sort of chatter about the strikes and what had been going on in Iran, and the Ayatollah just finding out that he had been killed. And over the next couple of days, I watched watched a bunch of different commentators and different news shows and different pundits and just about anything and everything, different politicians. And something was pretty clear fairly quickly, which was that I was kind of stunned about this part, and maybe I shouldn't be, I guess. I don't know. But I still can't really quite break the habit of kind of, oh, hang on just a second. I was going to try something really quick just to see if it actually helps with something. Hold on just a second. There we go. I realized that this. This used to be much bigger. And I think it was, there we go. Look at that. Much better contrast. At the very least, the contrast is much better. And my shirt might come in a little bit fuzzy, but not as fuzzy. Anywho, I remember as I was watching, I was like, wow, I pretty much nailed it. Like, everything that I said about what I thought the repercussions were, what I thought the situation was, the reasons for everything, and the idea that I think that the majority of the base is going to be pretty okay with this, despite the fact that that we're launching an attack on a foreign target that is an enemy of the United States and has been an enemy of the United States for almost 50 years. I think that that as long as this kind of, and there is a key element here, which everyone that I've watched that I really agree with, the people that I really respect, like Steven Crowder, Andrew Wilson, some of the more grounded, like some of the people that are more like they're not always just watching politics. They're not always only talking about politics, even though that's most of my show. But they do have other things they talk about on their show. Like Adam Carolla was a great example. We played him recently. But people that talk about all kinds of different subjects that aren't just political, a lot more cultural topics, a lot more topics about the the entertainment industry, things like movies and music, things like that. And one thing that was kind of clear from everybody that was in that sort of group was that as long as this is something that is, what he's saying, what him and the rest of the administration are saying, they want this to be a quick sort of mission to get rid of the people in power, to get rid of all the threats that are posed to us by that country, meaning predominantly, once again, this is, if there was one thing that you could say that was really the catalyst for why we were taking such extreme action, once again, it is the fact that they had a nuclear program. We destroyed it. We attempted to negotiate with them in a treaty that would satisfy both parties, and they refused to. They refused to say that they were going to no longer be pursuing enriching uranium and attempting to jumpstart their nuclear program again. And I mean, if that's the way, from some of the other people that were discussing the meetings that had more intimate knowledge, more privileged knowledge of the meetings between the negotiators, there's a lot of very arrogant sort of attitude from the Iranian negotiators. There was a lot of really hostile negotiation. There was no sense of like we're going to be budging. There was a very strong kind of sense of like, no, you're the ones that bombed us, so you can't be dictating terms to us. We're superior to you, and if you ever act in that way again, you're going to be the ones to pay. Like a very unusual sense of like superiority in this discussion, where you imagine that we just had the site that you were touting couldn't be destroyed by any other country's weapons, and we go in and literally destroy the whole thing so bad it's buried under a damn mountain. You'd expect a little bit of humility from the people that are coming in to talk. Apparently not. Apparently there was a lot more of a kind of an attitude that was just coming back in spades, and it was, from what it seems to me, it was typical Iran. Like that's the way Iran has been notoriously willing to operate with negotiators, and when Obama secured their supposed great deal with the nuclear deal with Iran, anybody who was following this thread out to its rational conclusion would be like, yeah, this there's no way this is going to end well, because it was interesting. There's been a lot of discussion, and we'll go over some of this stuff today. But I'll just preface everything by saying this: a lot of people have been mentioning like there's like 7 or 8 countries worldwide that have nuclear arsenals. One example of a country that acquired nuclear weapons without the approval of any of the international communities or United Nations or any kind of global organization for defensive purposes, for countries to avoid full-on world war that could be Armageddon. The one instance we can point to is North Korea, And there's not one person I don't think on earth that would, at least that doesn't live in North Korea or maybe in China, but especially in North Korea, that wouldn't say, yeah, these people are, they're treated like crap, but they are brainwashed from the moment they're born to hate everyone but people of their own country. They hate America. They hate the South Koreans. They hate they have a very strong set of beliefs, but they're such a very isolated and uh, poor country in terms of their actual wealth, um, that it's not near the same kind of threat level as a country like Iran, who has direct ties dealing oil and drones to China and Russia. And they were the biggest supplier of oil to China. They were the biggest supplier of drones to Russia. They had been, of course, sending money to every terrorist organization in the region to attack any enemies, whether it be Jews or Christians or Muslims that just didn't believe in radical jihad. And that was really that's really the point. And having a group like that where you have people who are religiously fundamental and by merit of their own beliefs that they are convinced of, and you are not going to convince them otherwise, by merit of that, they are going to consider it their holy mission to just destroy the countries and kill as many of the people who are non-believers as possible. I don't see where you wouldn't eventually at some point down the line have to come to this conclusion. And instead of waiting for a moment like the last time where we had to wait till the perfect time to launch a very specific strike with a very specific target and a very specific type of weapon, and we just happen to have just the right window to be able to pull it off, we have no clue what the circumstances will be the next time if they enrich uranium and they have it up to a certain percentage. We have no clue what those conditions will be. We have no clue what the state of their country will be, the state of their military, the state of their state-sponsored terrorist organizations all over the place. And on top of that, we also have no idea if the how good will the intelligence be this time around? Will there be anyone from Israel or from any of the other Arab nations? Because another thing that I'll mention in just a second, but will there be any kind of, so many things have to fall into place to get that strike right. You can't just say, well, we did it before, we'll do it again. How about instead we make sure it doesn't happen again? And if they're not going to agree to that, then okay, we got to get rid of them and have someone who will agree to that, because that's the problem. And that's that clip at the beginning. That's like the idea. You can't play this global bully and that you're gonna get your way no matter what, and then expect that that there aren't going to be consequences for that. And what really has pissed me off, probably more than anything, is well, that's a strong statement. There's a lot of things that are pissing me off really badly, but one thing that really pisses me off is that um, a lot of people on the left, and not so much on the right, but it's starting to kind of almost not really the sentiment, but the idea for some reason about Iran seems to somehow be really migrating to people on the right, that this idea of evil, just people that are just evil, and there's just no way to deal with them. For some reason, that's something that the left has almost always been ardently opposed to. They have this sort of idea that there are just evil people out there. They always have to come up with some kind of long-winded excuse for why someone did something that was absolutely reprehensible and terrible. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes there is no reason. They're just horrible people. And the only way to deal with them is by dealing with them the only way they will respond to, and that's with force. And unfortunately, when we're talking about a country like this, that's all they know, and it's you see it by the people in Iran. You see it by the people in the other Arab countries in the region. You see it by the fact that we are now getting support from countries like the UAE and like Saudi Arabia, and they're actually helping to ensure that any activated terrorist organizations in the region are not going to just start running amok and attempting to start retaliatory attacking different countries in the region. Um, there's no way they would go after someone like China or someone like the state like Russia or China. So they're not going to go after them, even though they didn't help at all. They basically were like, oh well. But at the same time, China's going to have some big problems coming out now without they were getting a large amount of their total energy from the oil from Iran, and similarly with Russia, they're going to lose a lot of their armament for the war in Ukraine, and so by all intents and purposes, there's so much that came about from this that is leading to a good thing, and yet there's 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 a couple really bizarre takes on this that are not unfamiliar. Of course, we've heard them before, um, but in light of what's happened here, and what really gets me is also in light of what's happened over the last full year, just a year in office, and look at the shift in the world. Look at the shift in just the United States, and then look at the shift in the entire global stability. Um, the only thing that's still really harmful that's going on is the war in Ukraine. That's it. Everything else has been well. I take that back. There's also lesser known, and even I can't believe people contend the idea that they're attempting to kill all the white farmers in South Africa. I don't know why that's such a contentious point. Actually, I do, because they're white. But um, the even with all these successes, and even after doing everything he said he was going to do when he did it, the mission in Iran the first time didn't take. It wasn't World War III. It wasn't boots on the ground. It wasn't a forever war. It wasn't regime change. It was a strike on a nuclear facility. Fast forward to Maduro and Venezuela. We could go back to even the strike on. Or wait, hold on. I'm thinking of. Well, we did sort of help Israel with the treaty with and the ceasefire that's still holding with Gaza and the Palestinians, which I don't know if anybody would have predicted that would have held this long unless they were thinking about it from the terms of what will they still be able to accomplish even under these circumstances. So there's that. There's Venezuela, once again, sent our guys in there. They took the guy out that they were trying to get. Not one casualty was suffered. There were some serious injuries, but nothing that was fatal. And I think one thing that really should be apparent is that recruitment hasn't gone down. Recruitment has been going up still. And what I find really heartening about that is that the people that are dedicated to the country to the point that they have usually generationally been willing to fight and lay their lives on the line for the country are once again willing to do that in ways they were not willing to under the last administration. And so you see that, and then I'm going to play a clip in just a second because I love I love the downplaying of both how strongly President Trump has been consistently harsh on Iran, and in fact, I'm going to play you a clip in a little bit of just how far back this goes. But the what's it, what, anyway, yeah, the point was that whatever it is that people were expecting for a president to, Donald Trump comes into office, and all this stuff goes on, and we haven't lost any, major battles. We haven't lost any kind of major, like our economy is not roaring back as fast as it should because of a couple of reasons. But I just found out something really interesting in the aftermath of the strikes in Iran that I didn't know about, which makes sense considering that very early on last year, about almost exactly a year ago, when we began trying to ship oil and natural gas back out again, and we were getting back engaging in global trade routes that had been open and kind of shut down more or less during Biden's administration. They were getting attacked by the Houthis by mortar fire. Now the Strait of Hormuz, which is, I didn't realize how critical that route is to the uh transportation of, like, just essentially, if you want to get anything to the region of the Middle East or Eastern Europe, or like sort of that area around the, like, dead center right there, like around Egypt and northern Africa and stuff like that. If you want to get any kind of goods in there, you have to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That area has been mined by, like deep sea mines, um, so that ships cannot pass through there without basically running the seriously intense risk of almost certainly being destroyed. Um, and then there's also what was that? Man, I don't know. Like, I mean, these weird freaking recaps. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just, it's just really weird how I'm laughing because it's what what is it that you can do in this situation that would make it any better? Like, and on top of that, these are supposedly people that voted for him, that were paying attention to the arguments, that heard his rhetoric, that heard what he had to say, that knew what his agenda was, and were like, "Yep, that's what I want." Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. But this is really being taken to another level in terms of the criticism that they're leveling this time. And I don't just mean Democrats this time. This is really disappointing. And I'm going to have to come. Whoa, this is going to be a tough day for me today. There's going to be a sad denouncement I'm going to have to make. It's okay. I'll make it through it. But I'll let you know when we get there, of course. But yeah, I guess I better kind of show you what I'm talking about, because oh boy, it kind of just, when I first kind of heard this, I was just like, just kind of like stunned for a second, and had to kind of sit there and kind of process it, because this wasn't what I was expecting. People with some angry and hurt fifis. I was not expecting the kind of this kind of rhetoric. And then when you top it off with actual poll data that's come in after the strikes, and the since this whole uh, attack on Iran has begun, they're not reflective of anything that these people seem to believe was going to happen, or was most certainly a consequence of no longer being blatantly, obviously, no longer being America first, and like I can't really even talk about all these things because the clips that I'm gonna play, it's like I want to debunk these, but I want to debunk these things with some backup and with um, some arguments that are not just going to be made by me, but made by people that are also following the situation. I also want to have the cabinet that, when they've come out and said some words about this, have what they've had to say. And I guess probably what blows my mind, I guess more than anything, is that I can get why Democrats are constantly freaking having a big uh, pity party and always constantly whining and complaining because they hate Trump so much. I am really stunned at the people who supported him, who knew what his record had been, who knew what he was like in the first term. Because don't forget there was attacks in the first term. It wasn't like it was all just only stick to doing things in America and don't interfere in any kind of global conflict, or don't support a side that's ideologically aligned with you as opposed to um what's it um but yeah, I hmm, hmm. Anyway, let's just start off with this because this will be a good way to kind of open it up. And I I've trimmed a bunch of stuff down, but there's a lot of longer segments that I'll be playing through today. So we'll kind of just play through these so that we can check them out, listen to what's said, and then go on from there because it's gonna be a lot of opinion mixed in with data that supports their point, but overall, a lot of people are looking at. See, I said this last time, and I'll reiterate this one more time. I was I was against the Iraq War from pretty much the beginning. I thought it made no sense. I had no idea why all of a sudden out of nowhere we went from Bin Laden in Afghanistan to Iraq and Saddam Hussein. I had no idea where that came from. Um, I thought that was really reckless and unusual and made no strategic sense. And this is me, mind you, who's just barely starting college and only recently getting into the whole political ideologies kinds of thing. Um, and I thought that this president is uh, very very good at uh, uh, well. Anyway, let me just get to this clip because they sum up this a lot better than I can do by just kind of beating around the bush. So um, which one should we start with? Hmm, oh man, I just saw something that's really depressing. Um, let's see. Sorry, where is the? Which one is it? It's. Mm, mm, mm. Here we go. So this is a short clip. This is sort of the leading people that have been. Should we start here or should we? Uh, yeah, because after that I can go into the segment with what's it called? With the cabinet, Marco Rubio and Donald Trump both speaking on the strikes and what was going on, et cetera, et cetera. And then we can move on to some of the more stalwart defenders and arguments for following along with what's going on for now, at least. So here we go. Now you're going to notice in the middle there's something very. I'm going to have to explain myself because it's a sad day for me. It's a sad day indeed. But take it away with this one, and then we'll go on from there. Anyway, yeah, there we go.
War is waged purely because Israel.
There's another big thing. The big theme, of course, throughout all of this is Israel, Israel, Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel, and the Jews, and all that fun stuff. So here we are. Without further ado, let's watch another real one of the biggest letdowns in the movement and in the country, really.
This war is waged purely because Israel wanted it to be waged.
I don't think those 4 service members died for the United States. I think they died for Iran or for Israel.
I was out there on the front lines for Make America Great Again. And Make America Great Again was supposed to be America first. What is happening to the man that I supported, you supported, a year in, and we're in another war, and we've got American troops being killed?
So 77% of Republicans approve of the U.S. action this weekend. And in fact, while there may be some loud critics inside the MAGA world who say this is not an America First strategy, in our poll, those Republicans who identify as MAGA, they are the most supportive of the president's approach here.
I love that ending. I absolutely love that ending, and I love those stats because you'll see later Dave Smith, of course, chiming in his fucking pointless bullshit that he's always spewing. But so we start off with Tucker Carlson, and then we interject with someone else, and then we go to Marjorie Taylor Greene ranting like a lunatic. But Megan, you let me down. You let me down. We were gonna bang. No, we were, but no. That one is particularly stinging because that is one hell of a fucking statement, and that's probably one of the ones that has been getting the rightly so, getting the most criticism, and because why not ask their families first if what they died for? Why not ask their families, their loved ones, and ask them what their feelings were going into this operation? Like were they upset about it? Did they think it was a betrayal they were being sent there? Did they have some sort of outrage at the idea that we were going to be in a forever war? We were going to be in a regime change war. We were starting another war, and because from what I've heard from everyone involved on this is that this is not about starting a war. This is about removing the people in power, and no matter what other side effects there might be, whether it's about Israel being more defended and not having to worry so much about someone constantly trying to kill them, not too far away from their borders, whether it's about whether it's the Iranians themselves celebrating in the streets and thanking President Trump and the decisive and swift action he took to remove the Ayatollah and many of the leaders in the country. At the end of the day, those are all benefits, but there's one main reason that this happened. Like I said, it is to make sure that a country like Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. There are numerous people, not just Donald Trump, not just Americans, not just people in Israel, but people in countries, people in other Arab countries. Absolutely, they do not want. I mean, there's a serious, strong, and very compelling reason why this country is uniquely concerning. That if they were to pursue the idea, the route of getting their hands on a nuclear weapon that could be delivered to a country nearby or delivered over oceans or wherever it might be. These aren't the kinds of people that are going to use it as a negotiating point. These aren't people who are going to use it for leverage in a territorial dispute. We saw that in Gaza. We saw that with October 7th. This is not just about land or about making a deal for peace. This is about a group of people with an ideology that they are duty bound by their religious faith to kill every individual on the planet that does not faithfully and correctly honor Allah in the correct way and as much as is required by their religious text. And like these are 100% fundamentalist Islamic extremists who are not shy in the slightest about stating out loud to the entire world their plans to, or their desire, their ambition to wipe out the United States, wipe out Israel, and wipe out every other nation that is not Islamic, and kill every last infidel. That's their goal. That is what they want. They don't go around and just talk about this because it's some pastime of theirs and it's fun, good old jolly times. They do it because it's what they believe, and we have seen that by not just what they say, but what they do. And we've seen that for 47 years. We've seen a lot of people who used to live in the country, and we've seen people who have escaped and started lives in a new country. I think one of the most compelling is Rita Panahi on Sky News Australia, who was originally from Iran, who escaped when she was really young, and has said several times, even on the shows that she's on, that she never thought in her lifetime she would ever see the Iranian mullahs and the supreme leader, the Ayatollah. She never thought that she would see the day that they were killed and overthrown. Never. Now, there's been no discussion on this idea of we're going to see, and this is once again why it's so imperative. You have to look at it. Seems to be something that is repeated by people on the left who are younger, and that's it. People on the right who are younger aren't really going and saying this all the time because I grew up with, I've talked about this before. I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and so I was just becoming an adult as the first the first army and as the first military regiments were being sent to the Middle East, to Afghanistan, of course, at first, and of course there's the infamous mission accomplished, and then much more activity going on for a lot longer than mission accomplished. But there's not a ton of people outside of just people on the left and people who are really overly, and see, this is what I think, especially with Tucker, because he's been just getting worse and worse with this. He views anything that's done in the Middle East that's aggressive as potentially returning to a posture of never-ending wars in the Middle East and never-ending regime change wars and constantly getting involved and I go, like, wait a minute, hold on. First of all, don't forget, like, when we were in Iraq, there were Halliburton trucks that were going in and out, that were setting up oil rigs, they were drilling, and they were trying to find more and more um, oil reserves because the country's rich with them. Um, I don't necessarily think that's the entire reason, but I think that was definitely a motivating factor. And to deny that and act like that was not a part of it at all is very, very dishonest at best. But um, there's other issues here too. Like, we became a net exporter of natural gas and oil in the last Trump administration, and I was wondering, why haven't we gone back to that? What happened? And when I heard about the Strait of Hormuz, and I heard about so many oil and natural gas transportation routes that had been vastly transformed in the last few years since the last Trump administration, he was like, it's all making sense now. Like, this isn't about going in to take somebody else's stuff and occupy them as long as we need to get it done, and then tell the American people this is all for some greater good of helping the people there, and say, no, this is about the fact that these people are causing extreme instability and danger in the regions that they occupy. They are all radicalized. They all are indoctrinated and basically told nothing but propaganda throughout their entire years of schooling. Something else I heard, and I don't know, is it just me or does this just sound ridiculous? Because we're gonna get to a clip, I'm sure, coming up pretty soon. For some reason, I think it's Jeffrey Sachs that is discussing this, and he's been on Tucker's show several times, so you know where he probably stands on this. But he's been one of the people who's been the loudest about this supposed attack from either the U.S. or Israel that um, ended up landing near a girls' school in Iran and killing a bunch of young schoolgirls. And I sat there and wait a minute, hold on. What school are girls going to in Iran? I thought that they didn't I didn't think they educated girls in Iran unless they're talking about like some kind of like special you know uh I don't know, like what is the school of the girls in Iran? I didn't think there were girls' schools in Iran. I didn't think girls were supposed to go to. I didn't think women were supposed to go to school in Iran. I didn't think in Islamic countries women were supposed to be going to school. I didn't. They're not supposed to walk around without their face and every single inch of their body covered aside from their eyes. And so, I mean, like, now they're walking to school. Like, what are we talking about here? And on top of all that, even if I'm wrong somehow, and there's some sort of special school in Iran where all the girls go, there's been no confirmed reports because we can't get accurate information. It's similar to once again what happened in Gaza, where all of a sudden 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 40, 450,000, like they keep ratcheting up this number that makes zero sense. And I don't know why I never switched back. I'm sorry. And no proof, no confirmation, no anything. We're just hearing these numbers, and people are swallowing it up because it's like, yeah, look at how terrible this is. It's like, how the fuck do you know this? I haven't heard the Secretary of War discuss this. I haven't heard Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, discuss this. I haven't heard President Trump discuss it. I haven't heard anybody discussing this. So if there was a strike that landed near a girls' school in Iran, which sounds fucking just bizarre as hell to me just to say that out loud in the first place. If that is the case, then I don't know how these people found out about it, other than hearing a leak about it that was likely more meant to propagandize you once again than actually more. Do you think anybody in Iran that was on the side of the mullahs is freaking mourning the death of schoolgirls that were trying to go to school? No, they have their focus is entirely elsewhere. Um, but this is what I mean. This is the kind of hysteria that is seeming to go over people. I don't quite get. I get it, but I don't quite get why people who have seen time and time again Trump being doubted, Trump being believed that, oh, he's really done it now, he's screwed up and there's no way he's getting out of this one, only to get out of this one and then end up like, coming back stronger than before. I don't see how you, this early in the game, with so little actual information, go so hard against the guy who has been the fucking comeback king for the last fucking 7 or 8 years now. Like, this is just so strange. This is so, like, you don't wait at all. You just are reactionary immediately. And that part with Megyn Kelly, unfortunately, it was really, really over the top, because, like, you are trying to now say that American citizens who are going to come home draped in the American flag with their casket displaying it proudly as they are discharged back to their families, trying to tell me that these people that are coming back didn't die in service to their country, they died in service to Israel? Are you fucking kidding me? No, this is crossing lines here that we do not need to be doing. There's enough freaking bullshit allegations still coming from the Democrats after. I'm not going to talk about this today. We're going to save this for another episode. But there's enough bullshit coming out with the deposition that was given on Capitol Hill from the Clintons, from now coming from Democrat senators, and of course, not too far behind, Thomas Massey, like the good little stooge that he is, running along right behind him saying, now we need to hear from Trump. Like, why? We all know the extent, like, what do we need to hear any more from Trump? You think he's going to come and you're going to be able to pin him on anything? I haven't heard anything said other than that ridiculous, stupid fucking birthday card thing. Yeah, yeah, he wrote this. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that just looks so like Trump talking about a beautiful secret or whatever the fuck that stupid thing was about. That was so pathetic. Like, come on, at least come up with something that has some kind of, like, something. Who the fuck thinks Donald Trump writes like that? Do you read his Truth Social posts? I mean, jeez, there's nothing at all in there that looks remotely like Donald Trump's speech. And he wasn't like this. To the extent he knew Jeffrey Epstein, they were palling around occasionally. Yeah, they weren't like best buds hanging out every chance they got. And you see definitely from Trump that especially now, and in ways that the FBI has admitted, in ways that the people around Trump have admitted, people that don't even like Trump have admitted it, that, yeah, no, he actually came out and was one of the first people to really step up and actually start providing the information to the FBI to bring him down. I've talked about this so many times before, and once again, I'm mentioning it again because the people on the left in the House and the Senate who are prepping their majority for their talking points that they're going to be putting forth every day, and just remember that when you go to vote, because oh Lord, we need to, and there is potentially the benefit in this situation that if this does prove to be another situation where everybody who's screaming at the top of their lungs about what a traitor Donald Trump is and how he is he's acting on behalf of a foreign nation as opposed to the United States, anybody who's out there spewing that bullshit, and actually doesn't want the next Congress to be spending literally every single hearing bitching and moaning about impeachment for this, impeachment for that, impeachment for wearing blue shoes on this day and impeachment for wearing black shoes on this day. I mean, they are going to have a field day with literally every single thing they find on him. If they take back the majority, that's what you can expect from some dunce who's as fucking stupid as hell like Hakeem Jeffries. And it's not at all in any way something that is reflective of reality. There's nothing there that that you know what they want. They want a mental tie, especially with voters, especially with their base, but at large, especially at large with everybody to some degree. That when you hear about Trump, you're going to immediately think about Epstein. They want to marry those two names together through repetition, propaganda. You see, repetition is like one of the most powerful tools you can use in propaganda to really get people to remember a certain, because it's completely involuntary. When you do remember something that happened, and if it's particularly hurtful or if it's particularly traumatizing or whatever it might be, geez, looks like I don't know, but that's just it boils my blood just hearing this stuff. So let's move on to some of the responses to this. We'll start with, like I said, we'll start with the responses that came directly after the first strikes and the first time that, or actually maybe the second, but one of the first couple times that Secretary Rubio was questioned about this, and then there's some answers from Donald Trump to the media at the end as well. So it's a relatively longer clip, but not super long. So yeah, we'll go over that next, and then oh boy, then we got some some real freaking intense stuff. But oh, and I also Michael Knowles is another one that I love. Michael Knowles, he's a good guy. He's got some good points. I disagree on a few things. I agree on a lot of other stuff. Um, but he was one that was early on really kind of saying the same thing. I will say, I might even avoid it because I don't even remember exactly what it was. But he hasn't really been pushing it too much. I think he's kind of recognized what anyone who actually is sane and does have some degree of respect for the president beyond that of the typical leftist lunatic, because he hasn't really talked much about it after that. Like, he brought it up, but that was it. And I saved the clip because I disagree with the point, but I haven't heard him talk about it since then. So I don't know. Maybe that was just a sort of passing sort of immediate reaction. I don't know. It was, but that's the problem, is that a lot of people have come out, and then rather than there's one thing about people on either side of the political aisle that are openly partisan and love to do on any video or any clip, any interview, anything, is double down, double down, double down, double down, double down. Everything's a double down. You're gonna freaking keep going, keep going. Nope, it's never enough. And it's really, to be frank, it's fucking gross. It's absolutely fucking gross, and I just, I'm still kind of stunned at the way. Not that, once again, I knew, obviously the left are going to seize on this to bring them to the majority in the House, and to at least in the House, so that we can have yeah. So anyway, let me get to this clip, and then we'll well, I'll kind of discuss this one as it goes, because this one's a lot longer than the first one. But now, bear in mind also that this particular interview, there was a reporter that really tried to nail Marco Rubio, who at first was discussing how Israel attacked Iran first, similar to what happened in the Operation Midnight Hammer, where they took out all the um, uh, air defense systems and they took out the nuclear sites that they were capable of taking out. They're just left with the one left that couldn't take a. Was that for him? Huh. Huh. Well, anyway, all right. Let me get back to this. So anyway, he was saying that he was getting questioned, and he was saying that Israel attacked them first, and then so we knew that it was just going to be a matter of time before Iran was going to launch some kind of attack on their enemies. We didn't want to sit around and be sitting ducks. Now, of course, anyone who's bad faith took that to mean that, oh, so this is a military action that is in response to something Israel did that was not approved of by the United States. Like, no, 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 no. That's not the point here. The point here is not that Israel launched a strike or didn't launch a strike. The point here is that this dangerous country that has been our biggest hindrance to trade, to foreign power, to oh man, uh, hmm, ah, mm, well, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what the hell. Anyway, let me get this. Where is there's so many clips, and I didn't organize this as well as I should have. That was my bad, but if I can- here we go. Found it. Okay. All right. Yeah, so this is about 6.5 minutes. So yeah, this one's a lot longer than the last one, obviously, but very informative. And the first exchange is the reason I brought that whole back and forth up is because that's what this reporter is going to lead with. The same example. He's going to try and once again pin this on Israel and say that we're doing this because of Israel and no one else, and that's of course the main fuel for anyone who is got their freaking head up in the clouds, freaking deciding, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. But anyway, yeah, this is the reporters and his Republicans pounce. No, Democrat reporters pounce all the time. So anyway, here we go. Wait, is it that one or is it? That's this one.
Operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this.
All right, hold on a second. Volume up, and there we go.
No, let me two things I would say. Number one is, no matter what, ultimately this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen because Iran in about a year or a year and a half would cross the line of immunity, meaning they would have so many short-range missiles, so many drones, that no one could do anything about it because they could hold the whole world hostage. Look at the damage they're doing now.
This is what I was talking about early on when I was talking about what situation are you going to be in next year? What situation are you going to be in a few months from now? What situation are you going to be in by the end of this year before we even reach a full year's time? Like, you don't know. You don't know what situation you're going to be in, what situation they're going to be in, what situation the entirety of the Middle East, what deals are going to be made with certain countries, with, all this stuff. Why not cut it off at the pass, stop it now, make sure that these people who have not engaged us in good faith, have not been seriously willing to negotiate to actually achieve a lasting peace by not uh, continuing to attempt to produce nuclear weapons, which once again, what do you need them for if, like, you could say deterrence if you were ever a country that was trying to deter anything, but you're not. You're a country that's trying to start a bunch of things. So, I mean, it's just, it defies all logic once again. But the point is that they just are looking for some way to once again, use an attack on Israel as a backhanded attack on President Trump, who is just Putin, not, well, yeah, Putin's lapdog, and now Benjamin Netanyahu's lapdog too. It's like everybody's lapdog. But then again, he's nobody's lapdog, because when they travel, well, Putin doesn't travel, but when world leaders travel, what are they doing this time around? They're clapping for Trump. They're agreeing with Trump in a lot of instances. It's crazy. So I'm sorry, I just had to interject with that, because he's 100% right about that, and it's amazing people don't really realize that. Like, what, do you have a crystal ball? Are you able to see into the future? You know exactly what's going to happen, and that there's going to be no worries whatsoever for the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 12 years. You know, how long is it going to be? Is it going to be under a different mullah? Is it going to be under a different supreme leader? Is it going to be under a different, more extreme protege of his? Like, what are we looking at here? And we don't know. But what we do know is that right now we're looking at a very weakened country that's lost control of their own population.
And this is a weakened Iran. Imagine a year from now. So that had to happen. Obviously, we were aware of Israeli intentions and understood what that would mean for us, and we had to be prepared to act as a result of it. But this had to happen no matter what.
Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you asked me that, that follow-up, and I said, no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program, that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. That's what I said yesterday, and you guys need to play it. And if you're going to play these statements, you need to play the whole statement, not clip it to reach a narrative that you want to do, all right?
This is your statement. This is your statement. Your quote is about...
Doesn't that just harken back to find people on both sides, like just the way the media works when Donald Trump is in office? We'll play the parts of the clip, because I swear I saw. By the way, it's Kyle the bitch, and his girlfriend, wife, whatever, the dildo sucker, on her show with her little co-host, who is just slamming the United States for doing Israel's bidding. And it's like, go fuck yourself, or go take the dildo up your ass. I don't care. Just shut the fuck up. Jeez Louise. Like, why constantly? Well, I know why, because you hate Donald Trump, but this is your obsession now. Let's constantly marry those two together and everything negative that happens, so that we can demonize the two people at once, and all of our freaking worst nightmares will go away. It's like, I don't think you know what's going on at all. I don't think you get any of this, and I don't think you care about understanding any of this. You care in so long and so far as it hurts Donald Trump in the primaries and throughout the rest of his time in office. And he's not going to get to put forth his agenda that he is hoping for. Sorry, I'm trying. I guess that was yeah. I guess that was it for now. Watch this jackass right here. By the way, yeah, he's a piece of work. You've probably seen him ask questions before in press conferences. He's not exactly the most he's not the most good faith member of the press that you'll run across. We'll put it that way. So.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack.
Yeah, no, I understand. But listen,
forces.
all right, let me understand. But I had a very specific question from that gentleman, right?
The president said, well, the president said that.
Hold on one second. I asked a very
force Israelis.
Okay, but let me answer because this is my press conference. Sure. Okay. You asked me, I was asked a very specific question. So you guys can misrepresent it, but I was asked a very specific question yesterday. The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do. He will always put the safety and security of our men and women in uniform and of all Americans before anything else. He's always going to do that, and that's what he did here. In addition to that, I would argue that this threat from Iran, they are hiding behind these missiles and hiding behind these drones. They wanted to reach a point where you couldn't touch them, and then they could do whatever the hell they wanted with their nuclear program. And there is no way in the world that this terroristic regime was going to get nuclear weapons, not under Donald Trump's watch. Listen, let me explain to you guys this in simple English. Okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision, and the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons. You see how they're using them now. Imagine how they would use them a year from now if they had more of these.
Did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes?
So I just want to highlight that because he really that was a great string of answers right there. It's exactly the point. Iran has consistently throughout, because remember that the state was founded by the state of Iran was founded by a revolution there that took place. It overthrew the crown, the royal family, and taken over by the new freaking what do you call it? The theocratic new Islamic government that was dubbed the Revolutionary Islamic Corps of freedom fighters. Like this group of religious warriors that are there to spread the word of Islam through the region. Nah, they're barbaric, monstrous murderers that torture and kill their own people whenever they say anything out of line. They have beliefs and customs and traditions that are by their very nature exclusionary to people of women and people of different races, of course, people of different beliefs, absolutely. And they're not in the tiniest bit shy about expressing them. You can see interview after interview and speech after speech, quote after quote, article after article. Every single thing you see that comes from one of the mouths of a leader in Israel is just like nothing but I'm sorry. I keep thinking about what's going on. It's like I'm trying to think of something else to say, and then I forget the clip was still going. So anyway.
Against Iran, did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were.
just real quick, I'll just make mention. There's two people. One was Jared Kushner. I can't remember the name of the other guy that was in the meetings, but there's photos from the meetings that were meant as negotiations, and there were several. There was quite a few meetings, and for Donald Trump to come out and say that they were going nowhere, these people were making ridiculous demands, that they weren't willing to do anything to put a good faith gesture up. It's like, and with a country like Iran, it makes total sense that that's exactly what they would be doing to handle a situation like this. Especially, they're not just already fundamentally, um, uh, you know, absolutely, completely, 100% Islamic to the core, and trying to constantly uphold the word of the Quran, but they're not in the slightest bit afraid of coming out and saying exactly what it is that that they're supposed to do with people who aren't. I thought this was totally different. Anyway, and by that, actually, never mind. I'll make that point later. But what is interesting about this point is that this is when we're starting to kind of get into the more specific parts of the specific parts of the deal. What was going on? Who was negotiating for how long, and for what kinds of terms? And essentially, no terms were ever really accepted because they were described by several people in the administration not serious. They were not serious about getting an actual treaty of some sort of peace agreement that would be signed between the Arab states and Israel and the United States and everybody involved. And it's just it's pretty pretty yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. We'll get this is just so strange, and it's really hard to swallow in its entirety. I'm watching this again and be like, man, people that are discussing this, and if they've watched stuff like this and they still are of the mindset that we had absolutely no reason in the world to ever attack Iran. Why would we go do that unless it was at the behest of that evil thug Benjamin Netanyahu and that evil regime in their territory that is run by the most evil president of all. He's just like Hitler. Jeez. Anyway, it's so typical, and yet so atypical for this level of conflict.
Going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've seen countries around the world, many of whom don't usually work together, working with the United States on Iran, whether it's Saudi Arabia working with the United States, Israel, Qatari shooting down Iranian aircraft, and we've also seen European countries step up. Why are we seeing such unity around the world against Iran?
That's a great point. Look, they're just evil. They're it's not the politics; it's their whole philosophy. It's their whole where they come from. It's terrible. Where they killed 35,000, I thought it was 32. Now it turns out it's much more than 35,000 people, and in some cases using machine guns with people that have no weapon. They have no weapon, and they're being machine gunned. They're being sniped from buildings. They're hitting the people with snipers right through the eyes. It's just a very evil ideology, and nobody's really seen anything like it. As I said, even the fact that they've attacked all of their neighbors, And the neighbors weren't attacking. They thought they'd maybe sit it out or what. They've hit Qatar. They've hit UAE.
Yep.
They've hit Saudi Arabia. They've hit Oman. They were helping us negotiate. They got hit. Everybody got hit because they're evil and they're bad. It's a bad seed, and somebody had to do it. And it should have been done sometime during a 47-year period because so much death has been caused by them. So much unbelievable death. From Germany, too. Germany's been hit. Everybody's been hit by them. It's an evil ideology. And I've never been, look, I've done a lot of good things. So many people are saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. You see it in the streets of Los Angeles. They have thousands of people. I saw it the other day, pictures of Donald Trump. And I'm looking, I'm on the phone, probably talking to you. And I'm looking, and I see my picture. I say, oh, no, it's another, protest. I see and then I started saying, boy, they were very friendly people. And then I saw a woman hugging the picture of me. I said, what's going on? And it turned out to be these are Iranian people that live in the United States.
So many.
Thousands and thousands. You saw the rallies. And in New York, too, they had a big rally by pictures all over the place. The fact is that people are happy what we did.
Now, this is the part where I have to interject, and I say this a lot with different circumstances, but I have to at least, mention this in the context, because even on little things like what I'm about to say, it exposes so much about what's happening on the political scene in the United States. If that was Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom or whoever on that side, they would be just as giddy and just as happy. They would be promoting the hell out of the poor Iranian refugees that came here and are now celebrating that the evil dictators that were controlling their country have been taken out, and they would be wanting to interview every last freaking person out there. But because Trump did it, the people have this, and that's what's I think that's probably, at least for someone like Donald Trump, that's more than enough, because he knows he's never going to have the respect or the any credit from anyone in the media, and I don't think he feels like he needs it, as long as the people that actually are at the heart of the matter, people like Iranian citizens who have fled their country, people like the families of servicemen and women who are right now overseas, and their lives are at risk, and they're doing it to make sure that this country and this regime and this ideology and this movement never has the ability to unleash some sort of massive sort of Armageddon on another innocent country that has no, not necessarily innocent country, but by comparison pretty innocent, but still, there are people in the country that absolutely do not, the majority of the people in every country, really every civilized country around the world, the majority of the people that are there are not trying to start conflicts with other countries. They're not trying to convert anyone's beliefs or enforce their way of thinking or anything like that. Unless they're a leftist, maybe then they are, but and they're going to try and convince you that your kid is trans, and that's what's so kind of gross about the whole thing too, is that I was watching this debate, and I'm sure I've talked about this before. I'm sure you've heard this before about how transgender ideology is like a new religion now at this point, because of how you can follow it with no evidence, you can follow it with no proof, no rationale, no real reason that you would believe, and you can't even answer obvious questions based on basic human biology and anatomy, and yet they say it every time they're asked a question. They say it, and they're not in the least bit feeling embarrassed or ashamed to be making complete and utter fools of themselves in front of the entire world. They have no freaking hesitation to do it. And that's the makeup of an ideologue. That's the makeup of somebody who is married to an idea so strongly that their identity is based in that idea. It's not just ideas that they hold and are important to them anymore. It's literally part of what makes up who they are. And that's how you get a Islamic fundamentalist who is going to attempt to murder and torture and brutalize like entire civilian populations of other countries. That's how you get them cheering on events like October 7th. That's how you get them to watch as they fire their entire payload. I just mentioned this the other day. 10,000 rockets flying away out of Iran towards Israel. And Iron Dome takes out just about all of them except like 2. And they're standing around cheering for the 2 they got through. Like that was some great accomplishment that you hit the ground with a couple rockets in Israel. Like, there's no justifiable purpose why that needs to be tolerated. We don't need to just sit around and act helpless around people who have the mindset that people who don't subscribe to that ridiculous way of thinking deserve to die. There's no excuse for it. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to the last part of this thing before we go on to the final segment. This is just to kind of back up and really, because I really want to pound this home. I really want to make sure that people are able to walk away and understand that this is not something that was sprung up out of nowhere. This is not something that was not talked about at great length. You saw from the intro clip, he was technically talking about ISIS in that clip, but essentially Islamic fundamentalism. He talked about Iran. He's talked about all the terrorist organizations in the Middle East. This guy's been talking about that for decades and decades. And I really want to pound it home that it's not just some spur of the moment, quick knee-jerk reaction based on some sort of emotional, when you watch Democrats and the way they respond to everything, it's always knee-jerk reactions. That's how they respond to everything. And once again, their only answer is to keep doubling down. So you never hear any kind of walking back or any kind of admission of like taking something too far, because they don't understand how to do that anymore. So because that's the case, because they can never walk anything back at all, even slightly, they have to keep pushing the narrative. And it doesn't matter if the proof is provided right to their face and it's 100% contradictory evidence to everything that they've just been saying, and yet that's not going to sway their opinion or their rhetoric one bit, not at all. And it's just like, that's what we have to contend with. That's the kind of people that we have to deal with, and unfortunately, we have plenty of it here in the guise of normal American citizens on the left, on the right, whatever. But these people are not normal. They're very. That's why I don't have any issue anymore with if you want your wheel to be engraved, it can look like anything basically. So, I don't know why. The point is that they have no limit. They are going to, similar to, and I'm talking about Iran here, but similar to how you can say a man is going to get pregnant, men can get pregnant, and women can have penises. That's how you can say that, Allah is going to be with us as we strike down America, the big Satan. And it's like, it stems from a place of absolute arrogance and a lack of any kind of wisdom or willingness to engage on a level that's deeper than just like surface level, something that actually strikes at the heart of the 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 essence of what it is that you're actually arguing for and fighting for. And at the core of it, when you are arguing for global jihad to kill all of the infidels, you're either seriously and severely indoctrinated into a very dangerous and uh, murderous cult, or you yourself were born a incredibly uh, violent, evil sociopath that we really have no chance of having any kind of success with any kind of rehabilitation or because a sociopath will be able to manipulate. They'll be able to convince people of certain ways of thinking and certain trains of thought and ways to even ways to um, uh, formulate a solution to a problem. They'll be able to convince them that their way of thinking is correct, even if it's wrong. That's why you sometimes see in more more undeveloped countries why they still go with uh, they just they have a block there that does not let them get through there. And anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling on about it. It's just it's hard. It's really hard when you recognize what it is that and how clear cut it is that look at what's happening. Look at who these people are, and and then you have a group of people like, nah, it's the guy, it's this guy. We just know that he's involved with Jeffrey Epstein, and it's like no shred of evidence, no proof, no nothing. They just keep going on and on and on. Ignore anyone else that has anything to do with it. I don't think they've even mentioned Prince Andrew's name in any kind of interview. The only person they mention is Trump. Trump, Trump, Trump. Oh, his name appears this many times. Yeah, once again, like I said, because maybe that has to do with the fact that he hated him because he blamed him for him going down. I firmly 100% believe the reason his name is in the files at all so much is because, once again, this is um, hmm. Anyway, I'm sorry. I was trying to come up with something to kind of finalize that, but I guess that's all I can say. In the meantime, okay, so let's get on with the last one. This is Steven Crowder, and he's going to go over, like I said, kind of the history of Trump's campaigns, Trump's speeches, Trump's positions, and what people are saying now, and the reality of the situation. And unfortunately, we're going to have to see. We had to see Megan once again just destroying herself too. Just another casualty. It's all right. Uh, but anyway, let me see if I have that in the same section. It should be. Yeah, here we go. Now this one I know is really well. It's about as long as the last one, so it's not that bad. But I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. Because there's also one more after this, but that's on a different subject. So anyway, here we go. Let's go ahead and bust this out, and I'll try not to I'll try not to interject too much so we can go through this kind of piece by piece. But Yeah.
G7 nations. It's a joint statement reaffirming that Iran can never have nukes. Other nations, and Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, and even Jordan.
You know, I'm not saying he wasn't a threat, but me being compared to him, I took offense to that.
I would too.
And one of the primary benefactors, you could say here, is definitely the United States. Iran has had a problem with the United States going back, I mean, as long as we can remember, but certainly starting 79, where they declared war, and they've redeclared war against the United States, killed thousands of service members in many of our bases with no intention to stop. So yes, Israel does. The myth here, the claim that is false, is that only the Jews would have an interest. Now, you may not say that these interests warrant the action, but to say that there aren't other interests outside of Israel is disingenuous. President Trump betrayed his base. Traitor.
I think the president
I hate when they
traitor. President Trump is a traitor and is doing this solely at the direction of the Jews, like Adelson. This is everywhere.
I think the president has gotten very poor counsel, and I do think it matters politically that he was the No More Endless Wars candidate in 2016 and 2024, particularly, and this looks like an open betrayal of the base.
And even right now, Donald Trump
barely
has majority support of his own base.
Oh, really, asshole? Really? I guess you weren't looking at the numbers that we were looking at right after the strike, and you didn't bother to pay any attention to that part, I guess. But yeah, keep up with the good. Well, no, not good work, I guess. Keep up with. Well, no, don't keep up. Just shut the fuck up. God, this guy drives me up the wall. I can't stand. He used to be kind of, somewhat rational guy. Then he started appearing alongside Chunky Yogurt in debates, and all of a sudden, wow, he's just as fucking big a lunatic as all of them. Okay, all right. You couldn't have a more appropriately named show if you tried. Like, ironically and unironically at the same time. Anyway. Let's get him off.
And think about it. Last I saw was something like 55% of Trump voters said, like, okay, we'll support the president so far.
The most important definition, Chris, is that America First, which is what he ran on, which is the Trump brand, equals zero wars. That's how voters understood it.
Well, no, that's not how voters understood it.
We actually had a
by the Jews
policy, which means not in the hands of Miriam Adelson and the Zionist lobby. If we actually had that, Netanyahu couldn't do anything about it because Israel, with its 8 to 10 million people, cannot fight Iran with its 100 million people.
You notice how he says that like it's just a great thing, and it's like not saying anything about how we should be involved or not involved or whatever, but just throwing that out like it's great. They're powerless to be able to fight against Iran in any way because it's only 1 million against 100 million. Like, right. So what's this excitement I hear in your voice about this situation? Why is that such a good thing? I don't understand this at all. I mean, because I could just throw it back. If they weren't led by a fucking radical theological supposed representative of God himself, and they were just a little bit more grounded in reality, and they didn't treat the government as if it was some sort of fucking welcome squad for the return of Allah or something, then, maybe they wouldn't be any conflict in the first place. Why can't we start from that perspective instead of the fact that, well, if the Jews tried something, they'd be slaughtered. So who cares? It's just, man. And I'm not trying to accuse anybody of Islamophobia or of anti-Semitism or anything like that. I'm just saying that, like, the way that people word things, they jump down Marco Rubio's throat for wording it the way he did. But you hear him, Jeffrey Sachs, right there, just talking about how the Jews would never do anything against Iran if there was no United States there to help them. Yeah, no shit. No shit. That's why we go there to diffuse situations. We seem to recall a point about a little less than a year ago when Trump said literally the following: "We have two countries that have been fighting for so long they don't know what the fuck they're fighting about." That was exactly what he said. That was exactly the way he described Israel and geez, why can't I think of it? Palestine. That was exactly how he was describing the conflict there. And once again, it's like that's a leader who's trying to say, "Hey, all right, we're here to make sure that these situations don't claim an unnecessary number of human lives, and that we keep everybody in check. We make sure that we, like I said, the ceasefire still holds. That is incredible. To this day, the ceasefire is still holding. Everybody predicted, oh, that's not going to hold. That's not going to hold for less than a month. It's like there hasn't been any new, fronts in the conflict since the ceasefire first started. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who are extremely anti-Israel on the left that are going to look at that and go, well, yeah, because they're in an open-air prison. And yeah, that must be why. But, open-air prison where they're given access to, literally everything they need to survive. But once again, it's just the way that people view things, and this sort of, it's kind of scary in a lot of ways, but this sort of absolutist way that people view a statement or a campaign speech, or it's like in the way that they would never hold somebody on the left like Joe Biden was going to be the unifier. Remember that? He unified, all right. He unified them all in the freaking D.C. jail if they freaking stepped foot on the lawn of the Capitol, because the biggest threat to the homeland is white Christian nationalism. Jesus, holy, oh man, that's what, just once again, more double standards that just pile up and pile up. And what are we doing? What are we doing?
Okay, and here's the truth. I would be upset if I thought that was the only reason President Trump is targeting Iran as well. If I believe that he had done a 180, I go, well, yeah, okay, that is a betrayal. By the way, when he says no new wars, he's not a warmonger president. Peace through strength. Remember Venezuela? I will tell you this before I get to the truth. If this is what it looks like, not everything is comparable to Iraq. If it looks like Venezuela, if it looks like the Iranian enrichment facilities, if it looks like the first day or two that we saw with Ayatollah through rank 75 can be taken out in swift order, it's one of those areas where I'm going to trust the president's judgment, because I think there are a lot of people, a lot of bad actors around the world going, you can just do stuff?
Yeah, I think it's great for other world leaders to look at this and remember that it could be you at any time.
Right. But this idea that he betrayed his...
That is such an important point, too, and I haven't mentioned that yet. But once again, the United States has really become complacent in the last 50 years or so with this idea that, and it's been diminishing even among the population, but for some reason people still think that there's no reason to ever engage in any kind of military action around the world, the same way that every single global country that has a strong military is forced to do on occasion to lower the tension and threat levels down so that no one else ends up getting killed in situations that get out of hand. when people are in large groups and there are disagreements, it tends to get ugly pretty quick. And when things like that happen, it doesn't take long before the bad people start showing up. The really bad people who want to not diffuse a situation, but they want to exploit it for everything that it's worth. And that's why you need countries like the United States, who are not only in charge of the strongest military in the world, but unlike just about every example in history, not every example, but unlike the majority of examples in history, not corrupt to the core and fighting for some idea of expanding their territory into new continents and into new regions, and having wiping out whoever they need to get more money and doing this and that. Like, we might have bad results due to good intentions. That's never a good thing in the long run. But it's better than going in with bad intentions and executing the bad intentions to get exactly what you want. Because your arrogance and your sort of short-sightedness is going to cost you dearly, but you're not at the mercy of someone who is going to purposely send your own countrymen like lambs to a slaughter to prove a point to another. That's not what's happening here. That's not what happens in the United States with our military in any situation. The reason people seem to hate Iraq as much as I do is that very reason. That was when a group of politicians and some lobbyists in Washington decided that it was all right to do some things that were going to be great for business but bad for the people, most certainly bad for the military. And I'm quoting an oil executive when I say that specifically, that it's going to be good for business but bad for the people, and he was willing to accept that because he was going to be making a shit ton of money. But that's why I think that event, even more than Vietnam, luckily, we weren't quite as we sure as hell didn't divorce this kind of mindset entirely, but we still at least had a okay. Anyway, it just makes me wonder. So, I know that given the right context, or given the yeah. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of another example, but I don't think there's any other examples that really will prove the point. The point is that, we used to understand that fact. We used to understand that to continue to have the country that we have and to maintain our ability to be free by our own desire and our own demand to be free, and not embroiled in conflicts around the world, and not at the mercy of dictators and militant general types that become the president of countries. And we have a sort of messy but more or less still somehow chugging along system of politics here, and as flawed as it is, who's the country right now that has the strongest military? Who's the country right now that is the envy of the world for how fast we've been able to bounce back from the insane levels of inflation? and of border crossings and all this sort of thing. How lucky are we to actually have that kind of country where the leaders do that? They're not out all over the world trying to convert people. When the left shouts about how evil Christian nationalism is, let's just think about this for a second. Are there Christian people running around into people's homes and raping and torturing them in front of their families to convert them somehow in this weird way of forcing someone to become an ideologue that believes the same religion you do? No, that would not be Christians. That wouldn't be Christians, it wouldn't be Jews, it wouldn't be just about any other religion I've heard on earth except one. And it happens to be the one that we just, went into the country that was the base of power for that religion and more or less fucking clocked the shit out of it. And it might not be completely down and out for the count, obviously, yet, but we dealt one hell of a blow, and now the rest of the world can look around and say, oh my God, America's not fucking around anymore. And that is what that is exactly what I was getting to with that point, was that like that can't be understated. One of the biggest things we were worried about under President Biden was the fact that he was rolling over for regime after regime, and then people were wondering how long until they attack Taiwan, how long until they attack this country or that country. Because why? Because we're allowing them to by just standing back and letting them have their way and not even pretending that there's going to be consequences for this. And so once again, that's what has always been one of Trump's greatest strengths, is that our enemies around the world, they really seemingly have no idea how to handle this guy. They don't. And it's a glorious thing to watch, because they're like, what? How is he doing this?
It's not President Trump's fault. The truth here, it's not President Trump's fault that you weren't paying attention. The truth, did we already hit the truth?
I'll hit it again.
Yeah. The truth is, he's been clear on Iran since the Iranian Revolution. I've shown you clips from, I believe, 2015. I've shown you tweets from 2011. Here's one from 1980, where before President Trump knew that he would ever run for the presidency, he was expressing the idea of America first and how Iran needs to be turned into an example for the sake of America. You may not agree, but you can't say that he's changed his mind.
When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely and totally ridiculous. That this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. And I don't think they'd do it with other countries. I honestly don't think they'd do it with other countries.
Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, et cetera, and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind. I think right now would be an oil-rich nation, and I believe that we should have done it, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't do it, and I don't think anybody would have held us in abeyance. I don't think anybody would have been angry with us, and we had every right to do it at the time. I think we've lost the opportunity.
Now, here's why that's important. That's him in 1980 saying, the United States needs to earn the respect of the world, and there's nothing that anyone could do. We need to act like the leaders that we are, and we have the right to get our people back and set the tone. That's 1980. They say, well, okay. Do we see that reflected later on? Is it consistent with the Make America Great, America First values? Well, remember that famous escalator ride in 2015? That famous video, that famous image. Took that escalator down, and in that very first speech, reiterated his sentiments from 1980, from 2004, from 2011. You may not agree with him, but he's not a traitor. Here it is.
I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, and we won't be using a man like Secretary Kerry that has absolutely no concept of negotiation, who's making a horrible and laughable deal, who's just being tapped along as they make weapons right now, and then goes into a bicycle race at 72 years old and falls and breaks his leg. I won't be doing that. And I promise I will never be in a bicycle race. That I can tell you.
Now,
so no nukes in Iran and no bicycle races. I didn't realize
bicycles are gay.
Yeah.
He's kept both promises.
They look like a gay flock of seagulls in their spandex, availing their asses. Genuine question, and we'll take your chats. Wherever you line up, can you honestly sit there and say that Donald Trump is a traitor?
That's really the key question there, and that's why it's so disappointing and frustrating and really just like what a letdown to see people that I once considered, very strong advocates with great arguments and great perspective on what was going on, to now be so hypnotized by whatever it is that caught their attention from this one country that apparently, it never fails to amaze me. It's just like, it's so much like the way the left used to react to the and still does to the NRA. Like the NRA, it's because the NRA money is going to this. It's like, okay, if you're going to make that argument, you have to make it because the NRA is the second largest next to the AARP, second largest public club or public whatever you call those entities as far as law under the law. They're the advocate group or whatever, the second largest in the country. They don't have a shit ton of money. They have a pretty good amount of money, but they don't have endless sums of money. What they have is a whole hell of a lot of support from a ton of American citizens who are under no circumstances going to just willingly hand over their guns and along with it their Second Amendment rights. That's what made the NRA so strong. It had nothing to do with lobbyists and buying off politicians. It had to do with the amount of people that supported the NRA and their message. And so when I hear arguments now that are like that are based on something like the all this Israeli lobbyists that are like, okay, yeah, they might be they might be pretty influential, but they are by no means. I mean, like, okay, there's people in the Republican Party that are bought off by Israel. The entirety of the Democrat Party is bought off by the fucking medical industrial complex. Okay, which one is more, which one's more nefarious here? We talk about a group of people that have only in the last, 10 years decided that it's a great idea to trans children because they'll have patients for their entire lives that will need to have surgery after surgery, procedure after procedure, medications, and nonstop. That never provides a cure for anything. Gets into constant squabbles and fights over anytime there's a generic medication made out of this name brand medication. God forbid people have the choice to spend a little less money on something that doesn't have the names and the commercials attached to it. And this is a group of people that for years and years and years were bitching and moaning about this lobby has a monopoly on it. I was like, yeah, and you guys are in the pocket of the medical industrial complex. Bravo. Well fucking done. You fucking frauds. Jesus. I'm sorry, my lord. Anyway, real quick, because I promised I was going to get to it, so I'll get to it real quick. It almost feels like I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyway, just because this is a nice little palate cleanser for all the serious talk for today. There was a bad day for Tim Walz and Keith Ellison that piece of work that we watched last time when he was in the Senate and got chewed out by everybody there, including Ron Johnson and Josh Hawley. They really did a number, but this time they're in the House, and this time it's about the Somali fraud, and it's not about ICE operations right now. Of course, the Democrats did everything they could to make it about Renee Good and Alex Preddy, all killing innocent American citizens, and I actually heard one jackass literally talking about how many detained immigrants are dying in the detainment facilities. What the fuck are you talking about? Are you talking about the ones that were killed by, the guy who was sniping them that was trying to kill Border Patrol and ICE agents? That was, won over by all your insane rhetoric? Maybe, is that what you're talking about or something else? Because I don't seem to know of anybody who has talked about this record number of people that are, scheduled for deportation, all of a sudden just dropping dead in all the detainment facilities for illegal immigrants. Nevertheless, despite their constant derailing of the point of the hearing, we had some of the fighters on the right, particularly Jim Jordan, and there was also a really nice piece that was done by Brandon Gill, who's one of the rising stars, most definitely on the right. But Jim Jordan, oh man, he went straight for the jugular this time because he had Tim Walz and Keith Ellison sitting in front of him, and some pretty compelling proof that they lied under oath to Congress, and that there's some courts that had found they had been completely untruthful in their actual role in covering up the fraud that had been taking place in Wisconsin, or I'm sorry, not Wisconsin, Minnesota. Anyway, so let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and close with this because this is just a nice little session of let's discredit the two of the most insane, depraved, and dangerous fucking political leaders in the country. Well, political leader and his stooge of a attorney general, or district attorney, whatever the hell he is. I know it's attorney general for the state. Yeah. So anyway, so get ready because we're gonna get to watch Jim Jordan make complete fools out of Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, and it's a thing of beauty. In fact, it's quite awesome. So here we go. Check this out.
Why didn't you tell the truth about why you restarted the payments?
Well, Chairman, we did tell you, and Feeding Our Future grew because of the pandemic. And
I didn't ask that question. I said, why didn't you tell the truth about why you restarted the payments? The payments stopped because there were concerns, obviously, it wouldn't stop the payments. Then they're restarted a month later. What was the reason for restarting the payments?
My understanding was the agency believed that the court had required them to make those payments.
And that was false, wasn't it? You repeated that. You said that, didn't you? You said that's why the reason. You said the reason you restarted is because the court ordered you to do so. Is that right?
I don't believe that is settled yet, to the best of my knowledge.
Well, I think it is, because the court did something that I just don't. I don't know if I've ever seen it. They issued a statement saying you were wrong in what you were saying. This is from the court. It says, Feeding Our Future versus Minnesota Department of Education correcting reports and statements by Governor Tim Walz concerning orders issued by the court.
Look at the look on his face.
Here's what the judge says. Governor Tim Walz told the media that the Minnesota Department of Education attempted in payments to FOF because of possible fraud, but that Judge Guthman ordered payments to continue in April 2021. Next sentence. That is false. So you said something that wasn't true. He further states this, Judge Guthman, the court says this, Judge Guthman never ordered the Department of Education to resume payments to Feeding Our Future in April 2021, or at any other time. So I want to know, why didn't you tell the truth?
Congressman, the attorneys at the Department of Education interpreted that differently. Both of those judges are no longer on the bench, and I think that interpretation.
The very first sentence, the first 7 words. This is not some unnamed source talking to the New York Times. This is not some anonymous source talking to whatever your Minnesota Star Tribune or whatever your paper is. This is the court speaking. First sentence, first 7 words. Due to inaccurate statements by the governor, Ramsey County District Court judge has issued and authorized this following news release. That's pretty straightforward. So the court's lying?
I love when they do this.
I can't tell you, Congressman, but the interpretation
somebody's lying. Somebody's lying, because you can't say the court ordered you to restart the payments, and then the court says we didn't order you to restart the payments. So either you're lying or the court's lying. And I'm just asking you, which one is it?
I just simply know what the attorneys at the agency believed, that it was a misinterpretation. And I would note that those payments...
Could it be you were trying to hide behind the court, Governor? Could that maybe be the reason why you issued the statements you did, and why the court had to do something you never see done before? They issue a press statement saying you're wrong, the governor is wrong. His statement is, their words, not mine, false. Could that be the reason?
That was not the interpretation of the attorneys. And you know, court work, you can appeal those, Congressman, as you well know. I'm sure
Is it all about politics, Governor?
No, it's about taking care of our people, which Minnesota does better than anyone else.
$3 million, the behavioral intervention program went from $3 million to $400 million in 5 years. The housing stabilization went from $2.6 million to $104 million. Governor, who's Casey Magan?
I don't know who Casey Magan is.
Well, I'll tell you. Mr. Magan is a Somali American and a fraud investigator in the guy beside you's office, in the Attorney General's office. And here's what he said. There was a perception that forcefully tackling this issue might cause political backlash among the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc.
No,
did that have anything to do with this whole fraud scheme that went on in your state, Governor?
It did not, Congressman.
It did not.
Bullshit.
So you're saying Mr. Casey Magan is lying too?
I'm not.
I love this.
You're the only one telling the truth in the whole state. Mr. Magan, who's a fraud investigator at the Attorney General's office, says it's politics. The court said
I couldn't speak for Mr. Magan. You asked me a question.
I know.
And I said no when you asked me the question.
I'm saying Casey Magan said just the opposite.
I don't know.
So the court's wrong and Casey Magan's wrong. You're the only guy right. How many people have been indicted in your state right now? Do you know, Governor?
I don't have those numbers with me.
You don't? 98 people have been indicted. You happen to know how many are Somali American?
I don't. We don't investigate or prosecute people based on ethnicity, religion.
Neither do I. We shouldn't do that. But Mr. Magan is a Somali American who just said that the court, one of the concerns was this is a core voting bloc. And I just want to know if you know how many of the 98 people who have been indicted in your state are Somali.
I don't. Their ethnicity is not my concern.
85% of the people indicted were Somali American, key voting bloc. And I think that's what drove this whole thing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Absolutely.
and good morning, gentlemen.
Now,
thank you for being here today.
Real quick,
Governor
before we hear
Walz
this
and
one,
Attorney General.
Now, Nancy Mace is one of those kind of senators for me, or congressmen, women for me, that very hit and miss. Sometimes I really find her really annoying, and then sometimes she actually knocks it out of the park. This just happens to be one of those times when she actually is going to really just decimate these fools. So, yeah, let's check this out, because this is pretty good.
Ellison, you have presided over one of the worst government fraud scandals in American history. This was money intended to feed hungry children, help kids with autism, provide food and shelter and health care to the needy, and more. You both allowed billions in these American taxpayer dollars to be pillaged and plundered by Somali pirates.
Doesn't she look like
you knew this
Sally
was happening.
Fields
You chose to do
the
nothing about it, and in
glasses?
some cases, you even enabled it. Attorney General
I don't know why, I
Ellison,
just
you
got
even
that.
profited from this fraud by taking campaign donations from these Somalians after pledging to help quash the investigation into them. I find your behavior despicable.
Oh, man.
My questions this morning,
she's
my first
got
go to Governor
loaded
Walz,
firearms
and
on
I
her.
hope you learned some lessons from your last hearing with me on
he
the
didn't.
Oversight Committee.
He
Have
can't
you learned
learn.
anything
I
since
did. That if I didn't speak up, 2 of my people would be dead, Congresswoman, and I warned you.
Okay, Miss Governor Walz, what is a woman? Have you learned that lesson? Do you know what a woman is?
I'm the governor of Minnesota, Congressman.
know what a
I'm not
woman
here
is?
to be your prop for your obsession.
So
I
if you
taught middle
can't
school your
define what a
obsession.
woman is, you certainly can't define what fraud is. If you can't even define what a woman is, you can't define fraud.
He's talking about how he taught middle school and he doesn't know what the definition of woman is. This is what I always love when they go down for this one, because it's like, once again, we'll just go down with the ship when it comes to trans issues. That's still super important, because God forbid they take away drag queen story hour. Oh no. What will we do then?
How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2017, Governor?
I don't have those numbers in front of me,
Okay.
Congresswoman.
Did you prepare for this hearing today? Did you
I
do
did.
any preparation
I take
for this hearing
Congress
today?
seriously.
And you've seen the numbers about autism fraud in Minnesota. So we're going to do some Minnesota math with you today, okay? Are you ready? How much money was spent on 2017 for autism in Minnesota? How much?
I don't know. I wasn't the governor.
Okay. Did you not just say that you prepared for this hearing today? $1 million, okay? A quick Google search or using your AI could tell you $1 million was spent. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2024?
I don't have the number in front of me. As
Were you governor
I
in
don't-
2024?
I was, but I'm not the
Okay,
head
so
of
your
HHS.
excuse before that you didn't know what 2017 autism numbers were because you were not governor, and today you can't answer the numbers about 2024 as governor, and you still said you prepared for this hearing today. It's unbelievable. $343 million was spent in 2024. What percent increase is that from 1 million to 343 million? What percentage increase is that?
I'm not here to be your prop. Go ahead and tell me.
Well, are you governor of Minnesota or not?
Yes, I am. I'm
Okay,
not.
well,
I'm
when
not
I'm
a prop
governor of
for a
South
member of
Carolina,
Congress.
you can sure as hell bet that I'm going to know the math. The math is 34,200% increase, an increase of 343 times
He hates
what
this.
it was
Oh,
in this
gee.
time period. Do you know the number of children in Minnesota?
I know that Minnesota ranked as a top 3 state
Okay,
for
what
children
is the
in the
total
last year.
population in Minnesota?
5.7 million.
Okay. What is the total population
that
of
one.
children in Minnesota?
I don't have the number in front of me
Are
right
you
now.
governor of Minnesota?
I know 400,000 were cut out of health care last
Okay,
week by
that's
the
not-
decisions you made.
Oh, Lord.
Are you governor of Minnesota?
I am.
And you don't know the number of children
I
residing
don't have
in
the
Minnesota?
specific number. It's 5.7 million.
That's your total
What is your
population.
age? What is the age?
1.2
0 to 5? 0 to
1
19?
You have approximately 1.2 million children in Minnesota.
What
I'm not
age?
even governor of South Carolina. Our population in South Carolina is 5.5 million. We have approximately 1.1 million children under the age of 18 in my home state of South Carolina, okay? As governor, I expect you to know this information. Thank God you're not vice president of the United States. Do you know approximately how many children in Minnesota are autistic or
that.
on the spectrum?
No, I don't have that number.
Okay, well, if you take the CDC's roughly 1 in 36 kids are on the spectrum, we're talking about approximately 33,000 kids. In South Carolina, it's about 31,000 or so. What is, do you know what this is per child, spending-wise, in the fraud for autistic kids in Minnesota?
Again, I'm not here to be your prop. Go ahead and tell us.
Is doing Minnesota math a prop? This is math. We're talking about fraud.
Minnesota ranks at the top. Where does South Carolina rank?
We're talking about money.
The top.
Where do South Carolina children rank on healthiness?
These are my questions for you. It doesn't go.
By the way, real quick, let me just interject real quick, because I did hear this from someone who was familiar with what was going on here and what he was trying to say. When he says we're ranked top, that means they're ranked top in terms of the amount spent. That has nothing to do with results. That has nothing to do with, people who go in and are coming out improved in their condition, getting better or anything like that. There's nothing about it that has any kind of reflection of success rates of any kind. It's how much money is spent on it. And of course, I wouldn't doubt that they spent the most money on it, because they lied about how many people had it. So yeah, that's pretty. That's typical Democrat bullshit at work right there. I mean, that's the name of the game.
The other way around, unless we're debating on the debate stage. And we're not.
If you're asking
This
questions
is-
about being governor,
I'm
it does.
asking you
When you're
questions
governor, you
about
can
being
come and
governor
tell
of
me.
Minnesota, which you can't answer. This is basic
Look
math.
how he thinks he actually pulled
And you can't
this.
even answer.
I'm not
Do you
here to
even
be your
care
prop.
about kids in Minnesota?
He thinks
They
he's
rank near
actually
the top in every
looking
category.
good.
My children are fed. My
Care
children
about
are
autistic
housed. My
children
children have
getting the
health care.
services they need in
My
Minnesota.
children have the best schools.
No, you don't. Mr. Chairman, I yield
How's
back.
the
I have
debt
addressed this issue
in,
many times.
Your,
All
in your
right,
state?
reclaiming
you
my time. In that
stupid fat
same
fuck?
meeting with the fraudsters, Mr. Attorney General,
Oh, and
you
here we
took
go.
aim at the Minnesota Department of Education. You stated that the Minnesota Department of Education had fought the nonprofit in very disgusting ways, in a very racist, xenophobic, and Islamophobic manner. You actually asked for the names of all these folks who are just hung up and offered to call the Minnesota Department of Education to, quote, demand some explanations. We now know that when you made these comments, the Biden DOJ was working with the Minnesota Department of Education and that their work exposed the massive fraud ring. Pretty bad look for you, sir. Either you were oblivious to what was going on under your nose, or worse, you were trying to obstruct the work of the Minnesota Department of Education. So
That is most
I can
likely
see
the
the
case.
time is getting short. Mr. Chairman, we are left with two questions. One, what did Governor Walz and Keith Ellison know about the fraud? And two, when did they actually know it? I would suggest that if they do not give direct and truthful answers to both these questions at this hearing, then they both need to be put under oath in a deposition. This is a serious thing, Mr. Attorney General. You are the only one who thinks protecting taxpayer dollars is political. Mr. Ellison, my concern is that you actively obstructed this investigation in exchange for campaign donations, a quid pro quo. If these concerns are proven to be true, you should be disbarred and you should go to jail. I yield back.
And that's why I really wanted to end on that, because that's just some good old fashioned grilling of some absolutely disgusting fucking people. The fact that first off, that I mean, with how much Tim Walz has lied about just about everything, from stolen valor and Tiananmen Square and I don't know, maybe he wasn't lying about being friends with school shooters. That might have been true. I don't know, but as far as he goes, I mean, there's no reputation left to ruin. Keith Ellison, the moment we found out who he was, we found out what an absolutely despicable person he is. Just like bottom of the barrel, like worst possible human being you could ever have, especially in any kind of position of power. So I heard people that had been discussing this, and the overall takeaway is that you know, we better see some action from the Congress. But once again, I hope so too. I really do. But here's once again, the Congress doesn't have authority to bring charges. They can only bring recommendations and facts based on investigations. So you know, I would say that if you're trying to look for anyone who is in a position of authority that abused it clearly and should be held accountable to show the people that we actually are going to uphold some kind of standard here in this country when people break the law. And like Democrats have said all for, you know, like it was on a record that was just skipping over and over again. No one is above the law. We heard that non-freaking stop, and what they really meant was no one except Democrats are above the law, at least in their opinion. I would love for that to be proven wrong, but we're just going to have to see how this plays out, because while I think it's safe to say that just about everybody that watches this is going to come away and have no doubt whatsoever in their mind that these two are lying sacks of shit, and that everything that was basically accused of them is 100% true. We all know that, but you got to remember that it's about what a prosecutor can prove to a jury and not what we all know based on the fact that we can stare at these people, look at them, and recognize these are the two most obvious, complete lying sacks of shit that you would ever see in elected office for the state of, like a governor or a, God forbid, the lead law enforcement officer for a state. So I hope that they can, they can make something out of this. But once again, it's also going to depend on what happens in the midterms, and it's also going to depend on how fast the cases are brought. But we are also people who don't support getting a guy like Jack Smith, who's not confirmed and has no business being the prosecutor. I would think that the party would not want to just steamroll it through like that, like it's like they can do whatever they want, and no one's going to say a word. So there are some standards that are going to need to be upheld here. But if there is any way to hold someone accountable, I would say that the first targets should be the easiest ones, and I don't think anyone would be easier than the odd couple here. So anyway, that'll do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back. As you maybe can tell, I am running on fumes, so hopefully I'll be able to rest up for tomorrow, and then probably I'll definitely aim for this weekend. Hopefully I can make it Saturday. I'll do my best to make it Saturday. I know I'm coming off by a day or so from when I've been trying to make it, but hey, we're not going weeks without episodes at this point, so I really don't want to jinx myself. I really badly don't, but we're there at least now, where you can at least expect me a couple times a week, and that's progress, right? Hey, but anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And last thing, real quick, in case anyone was interested, Rumble Wallet is 100% functional right now, and anybody that wishes to contribute to the channel at all, there's now a little tip button up in the top right corner of Rumble, and so if any of you are so gracious as to decide to leave any kind of monetary tip for me for the content, I'd be, of course, incredibly appreciative. Although I also have said it a million times, I'll say it again. I realize how valuable people's time is today, and it means a ton that you guys would just spend your time watching the show, and I appreciate that very much. Likewise on YouTube, don't really have enough subscribers at the moment, sadly, to have any kind of super chat capabilities. Although if you do want to send me a tip, there is my PayPal business account, which is linked below. So thank you guys so much. Whether you tip or not, doesn't matter. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Have a great one. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and have a fantastic evening and day tomorrow. And until I see you again, take it easy. Peace.
In 5, 4, 3. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a. I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.